Do you wish you could spend more time doing billable work and less time managing it and maybe managing your firm too? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you a technique called workflow mapping that will really help you streamline your operations, streamline your processes, and really so you can get your time back. If you don't know me, I'm Catherine, the resourceful lawyer, and I help lawyers design and build more efficient and profitable law firms. In this video, I'm going to explain what a workflow map is, how it can help, and how to get started with workflow mapping. So let's dive in. Workflow map is basically a visual representation of the steps that you need to do to accomplish whatever it is you need to accomplish. So if it's onboarding a client, sending out discovery, or anything else, it could be sending out invoices. It could be a legal process, or it could be a your business process. Whatever it is, it's visual representation that identifies who is doing what and when they need to do it. And like all maps, it is a roadmap. It tells you where you're going, how to start, who is involved, and what they're supposed to do. Now, workflow maps can be really elaborate and detailed, or they can be just kind of that overview, that 35,000 foot view, as we like to talk about. So, before I get into the nitty gritty, I also want to point out that in the description in the video is a link to my workflow mapping template. And hopefully, you can grab that and get started creating your own workflow maps with the information I'm going to give you today. We all know that legal work has lots of different parts. And we also know that running your own law firm or any part of the business that you, even if you're not running your own firm, but you're running a practice, anything like that, all takes time. And there are also processes that you need to follow that come up over and over and over again. So putting things in place really helps with making sure that everything's getting done, whether it's your business operations, your practice group, or particular client work. And of course, if you work with just one other person, there's always that back and forth. And it really helps to clarify when roles are clarified. So each person or anybody on the team knows exactly what they're doing and when they're doing it. Let me give you an example. So recently I was on a call with a group of lawyers, and one lawyer was explaining how she had a hearing coming up. And I guess she didn't normally have a lot of hearings, but every once in a while her practice they had hearings. So she has this hearing coming up, and the night before she's at home and she's thinking, I wonder if I should have a binder to bring with me to the hearing. And as she explained it, she was kind of disappointed that no one on her staff thought to prepare a binder for her. But I mean, honestly, she didn't think about it until the night before, but she was disappointed but that she didn't get what she needed. And I say that, I'm sure we all love those assistants and staff who anticipate our needs, who know what we need, don't need to be told. But most people are not mind readers. And, in this case, being a mind reader wouldn't have helped because she didn't even have the thought until the night before. So what can we do? We can prevent that kind of miscommunication, or that, I like to say, that gap between what you need and what you're getting. We can shrink that gap with a workflow map. So that story illustrates one of the problems that workflow maps help resolve, but there are a few others as well. So one of those problems is that people don't always know what to do or when to do it. And so workflow maps lay that out, and that the people can see where their work fits in with the bigger picture, and they know if they're waiting on someone else or if someone else is waiting on them. And it really maps the process out so everyone has that visual picture of what work needs to be done, who does it, and where it goes next. So in the case of our hearing that was scheduled, could have been a process in place that's triggered when there's a hearing date, 5 days before. This staff person goes and asks the attorney, hey, do you need a binder for this hearing? And if so, what do you want in it? And so, yeah, I'm sure we all love like our staff to just know what we need and know what to put in that binder. But at least having that communication, I think it would go a long way to, like I said, closing that gap. I think that the attorney I was describing earlier, I think, if that had even happened, I think that would have been a huge improvement for her and a better outcome for her and her staff. Another benefit of workflow maps is that it helps you identify those bottlenecks. So if you've got a lot of people doing on a particular process, but most of the work is getting funneled to one person in that workflow, well, that's your sign that maybe you need to find someone else to alleviate that pressure on that person. So if it's and you'll see, like I said, it's a map. And if all the arrows are pointing to one person at one particular moment, maybe you need to find some help for that person if they're so that they don't get overloaded. And it also doesn't block all the people who are coming up to do the next steps in the process. Okay, so I've convinced you that workflow maps are fantastic, which they are. Where do you start? What should you map first? Well, like a story I just mentioned, you want to look for tasks or results where there are gaps between what you want and what you need. And that really can help, putting a process in place can help you bridge that gap. The second thing is to identify tasks. Think about tasks that, you go and you get to work at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. And then by 11 o'clock, you're sitting there thinking, what in the world? Where did my day go? There are things that you're spending so much time on that really could be spent by other people if they had the right process in place. And then they would know exactly what you need and they could to take that, a little bit of that load from you and get it to the same result. The last thing to look for are tasks where the same questions come up every time you do X. So every time you send an invoice, the billing office asks this, or your bookkeeper asks this, or every time you have discovery going out, your secretary asks this. So things that where the same questions just always come up, and you probably find yourself thinking, I have told you this a million times. Well, that's a sign not that your assistant isn't listening, but it's a sign that this is something that we can systematize and we can make clarify it on paper and visually in advance, so that at least those questions should compress and there shouldn't be quite so many going forward. So now I'm going to share my tips for success for workflow mapping. The first is, and you might guess this if you spent some time on this channel, that get your team involved, because you might think you understand the process, but your team might have insights or questions that you can answer at that when you're creating this process that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And those questions that come up over and over again, you can identify when they come up in the process, and figure out how you're going to address them there and map it out so that those questions hopefully stop coming. Now, when you get your team involved, you need to be ready to have those honest conversations. Admit your frustrations without, hopefully, being too belligerent. You want to be kind and honest, but kind. And you want to make sure that everyone else in the room also feels that they can share too what's frustrating them. What do they, they are constantly saying, "Oh, he never tells me to do this," or "He's always says this but he means that," or "She means this," and things like that. So we want to we want to have those open and honest conversations about what's working and what's not working, and that can really help you create the most effective workflow map and implement it. Which leads to my next tip, which is think about, nobody, it doesn't do anybody good to make these beautiful workflow maps and file them in a drawer, never to be looked at again, and never to understand, it's just, you don't want, no one, let's face it, no one is going to say, when you say, hey, it's time to send the invoices to the clients, they're going to say, oh, let me see what that workflow is and look in their desk drawer and pull it out. No, probably not. Maybe, but probably not. So that brings up, what tools do you need, or what tools can you use to implement that process? If you spent time on my channel, again, you probably know I like ClickUp, but there are lots of other tools out there. Some of them are designed just for law firms. Some are like ClickUp, more general use, and I find more adaptable to all kinds of different types of work. So the you need something. It can be Outlook, your Outlook calendar. I mean, it could be that when a hearing is coming up, the your assistant calendars 5 days earlier to ask you about that binder, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with using Outlook or any other tool. Clio, I believe, has some capabilities if that's something that you use. The point is to make it something that's really easy and accessible for everyone so that people aren't guessing what you want and you're not having to guess about where things are in the process. Okay, so you've had these honest conversations and you're ready to actually create the map. What do you use? Well, if you're all in the same room in the same actual physical location, then I'm always a big fan of low tech. Sticky notes and a wall work great. Of course, if you are remote, like many of us are now, or hybrid, a collaboration tool like Mural, which is what I use for workflow mapping, can also be really helpful because it allows everyone to collaborate in real time on whatever you're trying to create. So you combine that with a Zoom call, and you can create a really robust workflow map that your team is ready to use. All right, so hopefully I've convinced you that it is totally worth the time and effort to map out your processes using a workflow map. And if you want some help or you want an example, you can click on the link in the description, and you will get access to my Mural template for workflow mapping, and also a sample Mural template, a sample workflow that I've created. So if you have any questions about that or need any support, of course, you can reach out to me at hello@theresourcefullawyer.com, and I'll be happy to help you get started with workflow mapping or any other project management tools and techniques that you might want to try.